Something that I find really interesting is that over the past few years, I've been able to work with so many different types of contractors like roofers, remodelers, deck contractors. And when I first started, I always thought that the biggest contractors always had something that the other contractors didn't. Maybe it was just that they had a bigger budget, better crews, or better salespeople. Or maybe just that they had been in business longer than those other contractors. But the more contractors that I started to work with, the more that this theory was completely wrong. Because I had met a remodeler that does incredible work, but constantly wasn't staying booked out. Because I was constantly meeting contractors that were really good at what they did, but their schedule was constantly not booked out as much as they wanted it to be. And then I would meet other contractors who were clearly not the best at what they did, but they were booked out for months, unlike other contractors in their area. And this did not make sense to me whatsoever, so I started to pay way more attention onto the contractors that were performing and the contractors that were not being booked out at all. Not in regards to what they were building necessarily, but how their business was structured overall and how they were able to stay booked out constantly, unlike a lot of other companies in their area. Hi, I'm Isaiah. I'm a third generation contractor, and somewhere along the way, over the past couple years, I've been able to realize something that dramatically changes how contractors scale. The companies that were growing the fastest wasn't just because they were better at construction than the other contractors in their area. It was because they were just better at being noticed in their area. Now, before you start thinking that I'm just going to tell you to go do a TikTok dance or something just crazy on social media like a new trend, that's not the case. I'm talking about something that's way simpler. The thing is, when a homeowner decides to get a new roof or a new bathroom or a new deck, they need to realize that you're the first choice before they even decide to do that thing. And this is massive because when a homeowner decides that they want a new kitchen remodeled, a new roof, or a new deck, your company has to exist in their mind before they even pick up the phone. Your company should already exist in their space before they even pick up the phone. Now for you, think about your own buying habits. For example, what was something expensive recently that you paid for that you did no research on? Probably never. And this is the exact same thing that homeowners do. They research, they compare contractors, they read reviews, they want to see exactly who is the best fit for the service that they need. They look at project photos, they call your recent clients that you've worked with, and they see your Facebook page or your website. They're building trust with each company before they even pick up the phone. And here's what surprised me, is that the contractors that were staying the most busy wasn't just because they were the ones that were spending the most on ads or the most on promoting their company. They were simply just showing up consistently wherever that homeowner was looking. I remember talking to a contractor not too long ago that was telling me how invisible he felt his company was in his area. And at first, I thought he was just meaning that his ads weren't performing. But this was not it. He was meaning that homeowners in his area didn't even know who he was until someone referred his business to that client. Now think about that for a second. Imagine building stellar work for a homeowner, but the only people that realized that you did that was the homeowner and maybe a couple of their friends or neighbors. That's probably an extremely frustrating place to operate your business from because you're not showcasing your work to really who needs it or really who's looking for a credible contractor in their area. And that's where it really started to click with me, is that marketing isn't about trying to convince people just to buy your stuff. It's about making sure the right people know that you exist before they even need your service. Because by the time somebody searches online, deck contractor near me or something like that, they've already decided that they're going to want a contractor. See, they're not deciding if they're going to do a deck, they're more so deciding who can I trust the most to fulfill on this project. And that's the completely different game that the contractors that are really doing well understand completely. And I noticed something else too. The contractors that were staying busy weren't the ones that were constantly just doing 10 different marketing strategies or constantly just testing different stuff. They weren't chasing every new trend that was said to them. All that they picked was one or two channels and consistently narrowed down what was working and what wasn't working with those channels. Only then, once they figured out what was working from those channels, they started to invest a lot more money into those things. And they stayed consistent enough so that every homeowner in their area knew who they were. One of the best examples of this was a contractor we worked with that provided additions, ADUs, and DADUs. When they first came to us, they weren't struggling because they just did bad work. They were struggling because their marketing had no consistency and no leads coming in at all. One month they would just boost one random Facebook post, and the next month they would stop marketing completely. Then a few weeks later, they'd just try something else that somebody told them might work. Everything depended based off how busy they were just in that week or just that month. So instead of constantly changing different things, we started to consistently just stay with one channel. We started focusing on getting the right offer to the right homeowners in his area. clear messaging and consistent advertising. Nothing complicated. And the result of this was we were able to generate them over 61 leads at just $10.82 per lead. Now, I'm not sharing this because every contractor should expect the exact same results that we got for this contractor. That's not how marketing works. There's so many different factors like what area you're in, what service you're trying to target, and how much your competition is doing the exact same thing. Instead of always stressing where the next lead was coming from, they had a consistent flow of people reaching out to them looking for a quote. For the first time in forever, they weren't just relying on luck or word of mouth and referrals. They started to gain momentum. And what's really funny about momentum in this space is that once you have momentum, people feel like, and it looks like, you're just an overnight success. They'll look at you now as the contractor that's being booked out for months, and they might just say, must be nice to be you. Or you just have a bigger budget, or you just have better crews. When you know deep down that's not the case. You just have a better and consistent flow of people reaching out to you. They don't see all the hard work that you put into growing your business online and keeping that consistency and visibility online. The before and after photos, the reviews, the websites, the ads, the funnels, everything like that. All that they see is just the end result of you being booked out for months. And I think that this is the biggest misconception that people have about contractors. They think that marketing is just supposed to always save any struggling business. And the fastest growing companies understand that that is not the case at all. They build from that momentum and they don't think, oh, I have enough leads that I know what to deal with now, I'll just shut off my marketing. That's not how the successful contractors think at all. I remember talking to another contractor too, and he was telling me how they only market when things are slow or when they're booked out for just a couple weeks. And then I asked him, so when things pick up and you're booked out a couple months, what happens then? And he said, oh, we just shut off the ads. And I get why some contractors think of it this way, that when you're busy, you're just wasting money, or that you could be saving the budget more. But that's not how the successful contractors think. Think about what happens in this rotation. You're not busy, you market, the phone rings, and then you're booked out. And then you don't market again, because you think that you just don't need more appointments. So then a few months later, you slow down again, and then the whole cycle repeats again. And then you're just scrambling and stressing to try to find the next appointment. It's like driving a truck and braking every single time you actually get up to speed on the highway. It would take you forever to get to your destination. And it's the same thing for your contracting business. You're moving, but you're not really building real momentum. And you need to stop treating your company like marketing is just an emergency button. The successful ones are the ones that treat marketing like it's just a part of their business, not something that they constantly just turn on and then shut off the next day. It's just something that they do, busy or slow, rain or shine. And that's exactly why they don't experience the highs and lows like every other contractor in their area. We saw this with another home improvement company that we were working with also. They weren't looking for a miracle, they had a solid reputation, but they were just wanting more consistency. And their problem was that they were constantly chasing what other contractors said was working for them. So every few weeks, they were constantly chasing just every new idea that they heard. But then what we decided to do was pick one channel and focus on trying to get homeowners in their area that were wanting their service. Within a couple of short weeks of us running this campaign, we generated over 43 leads at $28.76 per lead. Again, I'm not telling you this because I want you to focus on the exact number of the cost per lead or how many leads came in. It's a reminder that different services in different areas perform differently for the ads. There isn't just one magic campaign that you can run that will solve all your problems. The contractors that are continuing to scale aren't just the ones that look at the front end numbers of how much they're spending per lead or how many leads came in. They're asking a much broader question of, are we staying visible to the homeowners that need us the most? Because visibility creates opportunities, and the right opportunities create conversions. And then conversions create the jobs that will ultimately result in your company to scale. That's the exact sequence and not the other way around. And the more I've worked with contractors, the more I've realized something else too. The contracting companies that scale the most and the fastest are the ones that don't see marketing as just an emergency button like I mentioned before. And they don't see marketing as just something separate from their business. They see it as the whole customer experience. And think about it, because the first time a homeowner actually sees your company isn't you showing up to the estimate. It's typically from an ad, or someone referred them over to you, or they just saw you online and compared you with other contractors. The first review that they read of your company, or the first before and after photos that they saw. The first impression that a homeowner has with your contracting company isn't right where you're able to introduce yourself and explain what you do. And whether you like it or not, from the first very point that people see your company, they start judging you. And that's the exact reason why two contractors that produce the same exact quality wind up with one of them staying booked out constantly and the other struggling to get more projects. It's not because one is just crazy better at what they do, it's just because one of them is way easier for the client to trust. And that's really what great marketing is. It's not about being flashy or some dance you do on social media. And it's not about convincing people to buy something that they don't need. It's about removing uncertainty from any type of client and being the type of contractor that people can easily trust. Because when people actually trust you as a contractor, price becomes less and less of a conversation. And when they don't trust you, price is usually the first thing that they bring up. And those are two completely different types of companies. So if you take one thing away from this video, let it be this. It's that the fastest growing contractors in your area aren't the ones that are just trying every new marketing tactic out there. They're building a business that's consistently visible to homeowners, and they're building their business to where they're constantly and easily trustable in their area. And over time, that's what compounds and builds real momentum. And it's not because they just did one viral TikTok trend. It's not because they just showed up once. It's because they consistently showed up when other contractors disappeared and gave up. And if you're wondering if your contracting business has that type of foundation, we'd be happy to help you figure that out. What we do is actually a free business audit where we'll look at exactly where your contracting business is struggling and what you need to do to help it scale, why you're not getting the results that you want to be getting, and what's holding you back from getting there. Sometimes as a contractor, it's not about just working harder. It's about getting a different perspective for your business and really getting different insights on how you can scale. If that sounds helpful, then go to our website and book a call with me below. Hope that all this helps.